High above the Arctic Circle, on the Norwegian border with Russia, is Kirkenes, a town where some say the Cold War never ended. It's where a memorial to the Soviet soldiers who defeated the Nazis has a darker meaning since Russia invaded Ukraine. A town where reporters say they've been targeted by Russia's spy network.
They're going to prison, or I will be free.
And anti-war protesters rally under the watchful eye of the Russian consulate. This is a community living with the threat of war between NATO and Russia.
NATO is a threat to Russia.
Norway threatens no one, nor do NATO.
And the suspicion that hangs over everything.
It's a very dangerous question.
I'm Adam Charlton. Welcome to Beyond Borders. It's hard to believe this is high summer in northern Norway. What heat there's been in the land of the midnight sun brought an annual ice melt revealing the relics of a war that ended more than 80 years ago. Our mix of Russian and Norwegian hosts know the weapons are no longer live, but plan a little joke at our expense.
Ammunition? Oh my gosh.
Those we meet here, trying to escape the rain, know only from books and any remaining relatives old enough what it's like to live through such a conflict. Galina Johansson was born in Russia and has lived in Norway for the past 20 plus years.
I russisk kultur at vi liker å samles, venner. Vi gjestfrihet og liker å spise mat I lag, og det utgangspunktet jeg liker fra min barndom.
Memories and memorabilia from the Soviet Union are never far away.
We've been served a traditional Russian rice dish. Check out the spoon. Little nod here to the Soviet days. And it's really good.
Natalia was just a teenager when the Soviet Union fell.
What do you remember from that day?
I Russland stort sett alle I blokker, bor I blokker. Min klassekamerat på siste etasje på sjette. Så han mekket en antenne. Satte ut fra vinduet, og etter klokka 12 på natta, vi hadde signal fra Norge. Vi hørte BNM, ABBA, Metallica, AC/DC.
Many of the people around the fire have visas that allow them to cross back and forth into Russia. Things have changed dramatically since Ukraine.
Man må ha litt tanke I hodet at ikke blir man utsatt for en eller annet, eller blir brukt en eller annet. Man vet jo ikke. Derfor vi var forsiktige.
In the beginning, we were more relaxed because it was not so much like personal attacks. I think now is more because it's have been going on for so long.
But the conversation turns when we bring up Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I think it's sort of interesting how history can be rewritten over time, or people's views change, because as we know, Vladimir Putin saw it as a humiliation. I just wonder how much of this is the entire mood of a country or one man's legacy looking to turn back the clock after the dissolution of the Soviet Union.
Det ett väldigt farligt spörsmål. It's a very dangerous question.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
This is where Western and Russian forces directly face each other. Off the coast, the Barents Sea holds a fortune of untapped oil and gas. It's also the gateway to Europe for the Russian Navy and their nuclear submarines. And now as the Arctic ice melts, it's a critical route for trade and military movements. Russia wants control there, as does China for its shipping route, the Polar Silk Road. These Norwegian soldiers are conscripts straight out of school. The border they patrol lies precisely in the middle, between 387 pairs of posts. Yellow and black mark the Norwegian side, while red and green mark the Russian side.
Martin, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Show me around.
Yeah. This is the hallway where we keep all of our equipment. It's the thermal binoculars that we use when it's dark outside, especially on patrols. So it's just like this, and you can scan the area.
If there were ever any aggression from the other side of the border, and we're talking about Russia, you guys are the first line of defense.
That's not something that we think about all the time. We just think about doing the mission. So we're not laying in bed like thinking about what can happen.
What is the mission?
It's to watch the border, keep the border safe, preventing people from crossing, and just drifting and operating.
You feel the responsibility, but we're really proud to be out here, to be able to represent our country. So together we're like a wolf pack. So that's why we have a wolf on our shoulder. That's what it means. We never go alone. We always stick together.
This next crop of conscripts is being briefed by the mayor.
They are our next door neighbors.
He tells them this is about the fate of democracy.
Where we're standing, we can see Russia just over the border down there. For the conscripts you were just speaking to, in front of all those maps, that seemed like the most important geography lesson they'll ever get.
I hope so, yeah. So this is a place that is formed and transformed by its geography, and that's the reason why geopolitics and security policy is important here.
I think I saw fear in some of their faces, an apprehension about the mission.
If Europe does not soon wake up, you will face fear every day.
We've just heard that a Russian soldier has crossed the border and defected to the Norwegian side.
We're on our way to meet a man who lives near where it happened, and he spoke to the border guards who intercepted him. Viggo Hansen is a farmer and lives here on the border, an hour outside of Kirkenes, all year round.
What was it that you saw?
My dog suddenly started looking straight up in the air, and it was a Norwegian police drone. Most of the border, which is 196 kilometers, is covered with cameras. But down here there is no camera coverage. He crossed the border straight 100 meters from here.
We find out later from the soldier's lawyer that he's seeking asylum in Norway.
You were telling me there's a Russian military base just over the border there.
Yeah. The first military soldier sent to Ukraine was from that base.
Right.
And what I have been told, most of them died there, the first day of the invasion. They say that the base is nearly empty. It's no vehicle left and no soldiers left.
Kirkenes sits in Norway's northernmost county of Finnmark, where more soldiers and artillery have just been added to fortify NATO's buffer zone with Russia.
Well, the proud colonel up there referring to the troops as his wolf pack, and his pack just got a whole lot bigger. Today marks a huge upgrade to Norway's military forces right here close to the Russian border.
This is the first new Norwegian brigade since the Cold War. It means NATO now has a combat-ready force about 200 kilometers from where Russia keeps its nuclear weapons.
Clearly, there's a direct link between the war in Ukraine and the build-up of the brigade. We have Russian military forces 10 to 15 kilometers from the Norwegian border that being trained as reserves and new soldiers being sent down to Ukraine by Russia. So this is close to us. We know what this is.
Vi må kunne forsvare oss, og vi må forberede oss til krig.
We first meet Olesia Kritsova at a protest outside the Russian consulate, which coincides with Ukraine's Independence Day.
Slava Ukraini!
Olesia, who is now a Russian exile here, was facing 10 years in prison for calling Russia an aggressor on social media.
I was really stressed about it. I couldn't eat.
But she escaped house arrest by taking off her electronic tag, hiding her identity, and crossing the border into Lithuania.
Was there a moment where you thought maybe you won't escape?
It just was only two possible things that can happen: that I'm going to prison or I will be free.
She says she was still being watched when she became a reporter for the Barents Observer.
Firstly, I just met a guy who started to speak with me Russian, and I said, "Why do you know me?" He said, "Of course I read about you," but then he said that he works for General Consulate.
And then you decided to try and find out who he was?
Firstly, I found his real name, then I found his photo in FSB uniform.
FSB, so Russian intelligence. What did you do with that information when you found out who he was?
Well, photo is not enough proof. Then I found even place where he worked and his salary. So, and that was quite enough proofs to say that at least he was connected with FSB.
After her story was published, Olesia never saw the man again. She's been labelled a foreign agent by Moscow and doesn't think she'll ever return to Russia. Frode Berg, however, wasn't fortunate enough to escape. He was a Norwegian border guard for more than 2 decades. But in the years after retirement, Norwegian intelligence came calling and recruited him. He was arrested in Moscow in 2017 and sentenced to 14 years in prison for spying on Russian submarines.
I had never get some information with me back from Russia, never. But I was more a courier.
A courier? Yeah. Not a spy?
Not a spy. As I say something, some people said the spy who don't know he was a spy.
Frode Berg was released early in a prisoner swap between Russia and Lithuania in 2019, but returned to Norway, a controversial figure.
Do you think some people consider you a hero for what you did?
Here in Norway?
Yes.
Yes, someone. Some. Here locally in Kirkenes, there are some people who said, I have destroyed a good relation between Norway and Russia. I done this for my country and for NATO, and okay. They used me, but that's the real life in the intelligence service.
For the head of counterintelligence at the Norwegian Police Security Service, Kirkenes isn't just a home. It's a laboratory for Russia to test NATO's defences.
This region is important to both NATO and Russia, and the whole concept of mutual destruction with nuclear weapons. You have to ensure their ability to operate. There's a good possibility that you will get welcome to Russia on your cell phone.
So this close to the Russian border, our cell phones will pick up?
They obtain a SIM number, a phone identifier, and maybe some traffic. And one thing Russia is really keen about is controlling internet traffic and all electronic traffic in their country. To have control of your population, this is kind of the first thing to do, control communications.
There's something strange happening in the seas and in the skies around Kirkenes. Radar interference is affecting planes trying to land at the town's airport. And ships are concealing their identities and their intentions by jamming GPS signals.
We know that the Russian vessels, basically all of them, have some sort of task done for the government. From the extremities where you have an intelligence vessel camouflaged as a fishing vessel, to the real fishing vessel where the captain has been instructed to make note of certain things sailing in and out of Kirkenes.
This is one of the only ports in Europe where Russian vessels can still dock.
There has always been shadow vessels in waters, but the increase has been dramatic since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. And it's obvious that the increase, we see it particularly here in the Arctic area, is linked to Russian activities to avoid the consequences of the sanctions. They're exporting oil and gas because the shadow fleet now is predominantly oil and gas carriers. And they camouflage who they are and what their purpose is.
In a crisis centre 1,500 kilometres away in the capital of Oslo, ex-military specialists protect Norwegian ships from war, terror, piracy and cyber attacks. The vessels they monitor have a value of around $220 billion.
The shipping industry is the backbone of the world economy. If the shipping stops, the world economy will come to a grinding halt. The Arctic has certainly become an area of geopolitical competition. You do see both the Chinese and of course the Russians take great interest in what's going on there. And you do see a lot of grey zone aggression. You see the Russians, they are doing GNSS interference, mainly directed on the aviation side. But from time to time also this will affect the maritime.
Sven and his team work alongside cyber warfare experts who are tracking hundreds of cyber attacks from state-linked hackers, including China, Iran and Russia.
We look at the nation-state actors, and obviously there are quite a few of them now with the geopolitical situation in the world. Many of them are doing espionage activity, and then also, of course, some of them are most likely trying to pre-position themselves into critical systems and critical national infrastructure to be able to do something malicious at a later point.
Are you worried about a full-scale invasion by Russia?
I would say it's more important than ever that we are prepared for it, and I think us being prepared for it also makes it less likely that they actually attempt.
Since 1949, the NATO alliance has nearly trebled in size.
Nice to meet you.
Russia argues NATO's eastward expansion is a danger to its security.
Kirkenes area, very close to Murmansk. It is the region where one of the key Russian nuclear deterrent. I do think that Russia is interested to have any problems in the territory of another adjusted to Russian border region, because any instability in this region also could have consequence and affect even Russia.
I think some people worry about the threat of war in the Arctic along Russian and European lines. Is that a legitimate concern?
Military and political situation in the Arctic is very tense, because that is more confrontation arriving, the more and more activities of NATO, and with that not arriving stability and predictability. There, unfortunately, it's only escalating.
Is NATO a competitor or a threat to Russia?
NATO is a threat to Russia.
Norway threatens no one, nor do NATO.
The Norwegian government says the NATO enlargement is about protecting democracy.
The only country in Europe who's threatening someone is Russia. They have attacked Ukraine without no reasons. NATO is a defense alliance. We will defend ourselves. We will deter any potential aggressor or enemy against our borders to protect our sovereignty. And So NATO is no threat, nor is Norway.
Hans Hult is taking tourists to the border. They come from all over the world, and business has never been so good.
We had the best year in our history last year.
You did?
Yes, of course.
What? Why? Why are people so fascinated, do you think?
Yeah, there are different reasons for that. First of all the Asian countries started to travel. So we had more than 7,500 guests this winter from Asia. So, are you ready?
The border between Norway and Russia is halfway between those two posts behind me. The last time a tourist decided they wanted to take a walk over to the Russian side, within 10 minutes, 3 soldiers from Norway scooped him up, taken him away for questioning, and fined him $3,000.
Hans doesn't support Russia's war in Ukraine, but he lived through the Cold War and says he knows how Russia thinks.
Of course they feel threatened, but NATO is not an aggressor part. But it seems like if when you put all the exercises close up to the faces of the Russians, then they seem like being aggressors.
But while tourism booms, other industries are hurting.
So for all this region, it's very terrible. Everybody missed this store.
Before the Ukraine war, Russians queued to cross the border to shop in Kirkenes. Then came Western sanctions. Russian shoppers couldn't cross anymore, and the town's biggest discount department store was unable to survive.
So how many Russian customers did you used to get?
To this area and this community, it's come about in a regular Saturday. It's come about 1,200 to 1,500 over the border to shop in the shop in Kirkenes.
And when the border shut, they just disappeared overnight?
They disappeared overnight.
Artist Evgeny Goman was Minister of Culture for Russia's Murmansk region.
Yeah, this is Russian, this is Norwegian. And they actually
But he felt freedom of expression was under threat. So he moved his family to Norway a month before the war started.
We did see some people approaching this and trying to tear down a piece.
2 reclaimed border posts outside his art gallery have now become politically charged.
I feel that the dialogue is a little more tense. I think a lot of those who are supporting Russia are self-censoring now because it's not a popular opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a shame because it's important to communicate about things, even if we disagree, even if we totally disagree, and if we don't communicate, it will bring up only chaos and destruction.
The Norwegian foreign minister is visiting Kirkenes to sell the government's new Arctic strategy called Total Defence. Many of the people we've met are here to ask him questions. The minister tells them they're living through the most serious security situation since the Second World War and wants communities to be ready.
You heard from Alessia Kutsova from the Barents Observer. She says that she was followed and harassed by an FSB agent. How do we know there aren't more?
Now, in all our countries, in NATO countries bordering Russia, we know there is a lot of activity from FSB and from Russian authorities trying to influence, to manipulate, to prepare for potential sabotage. We also have strengthened our own surveillance around security services, so they follow these things, and we know quite a lot of what's going on, and we also make the population aware that these are activities that might affect them.
Can they feel safe and secure in this community?
I think they can. Of course, we have to take certain security precautions because we are such a close neighbor to Russia, but we want people to feel happy here and to have, they want to stay here, because it's also part of a total defense concept that we have economy, that we have people, that we have families, that we have normal life here in this part of the country. We cannot compensate for all of that just by defense investments.
Pretty long summer as well, because it never gets dark in summer.
For the people of this small town on the edge of the Arctic, life has become increasingly complicated.
Nobody wins.
No.
It's only the suffering and loss.
Og derfor synes det veldig viktig å holde den lille vennskapsbru.
The conversations we've had reveal this isn't just where two nations meet geographically.
I am Russian only here. When I go to Russia, I'm not Russian anymore. Then I'm Norwegian.
This border is now much more than a line on a map. If it ever comes to conflict between NATO and Russia, it could well be the front line.